We are halfway through the build season for the 2025 FRC Challenge. Teams by now have surely finished designs and started building prototypes. Right, teams? I'm also using we in the biggest air quotes because I'm not building anything, I'm just kind of watching it all. Oh boy, what a challenge first cooked up for you. Also, shout out to IRS, the good IRS, not the bad IRS. Love it when a PNW team gets international attention. Hashtag non-biased. We got ourselves a water game after praying for years now. It was a meme when I was in high school. Now that we finally have a water game, it's got everyone asking, where is the water? Now, I was gonna make a video on this, but it was just gonna get redundant and quick. But mainly, there are a couple reasons why I first probably won't make a true water game. One, not every high school has a pool. Okay, that's gonna be tough for venues and for practices. High schools probably won't want like 60 robots getting dunked in their pools. For other venues, they'd have to build a pool on site, and water is heavy. It's 8 pounds a gallon, which is something like 2 cheeseburgers for Budweiser for anyone not using Freedom units. And electronics and water don't mix well. I'm sure that a lot of schools don't want their teenage students getting electrocuted. So as for the water game we do have, this seems to be a very rookie-friendly game. Only one defense bot is allowed on the opposing side at a time, which is handy for rookies who want to be on offense instead of just being the go-to defense spot. But if you want to be the defense spot, then there you go, a designated defender of sorts. And it does make sense why only one robot is allowed on the other side, because everyone's going to be going for these deep cages. I thought it was going to be very tough. We saw some of these robots built in 3 days, completely knocked it out the park for these deep cage climbs. Everyone's gonna be doing a deep cage climb. That means in these matches, there's gonna be 6 deep cages, and if all the robots are whizzing back and forth, all of those cages are gonna be swinging back and forth violently. Hard knocks into the robot, maybe hard knocks into the human player. Could happen. Don't underestimate the ability of these robots to break stuff. During the kick oof video, I sort of started a tube cult, and I wasn't really paying attention to the kickoff animation, but after watching the kickoff video a million times over, really getting into the rule book, this is just the tube-based game. This is absolutely tubular. Obviously, you do have the algae, and ranking points go burst, so you're gonna have to get those if you want those sweet ranking points very easily. But the robot scoring into the barge might not need to happen since the human players can score. But then it gets into an interesting conundrum. It's 6 points into the low goal, and it's 4 points up into the barge, but once it's gone, it's gone. So the human players could intentionally miss shots so that their alliance partners can score and get 6 points, hoping that the other human player also misses their shots. And from what we've seen, scoring shots into the barge as a human player does not look tough, even if you have no sports ball experience. Since this is such a tube-based game, no height limit, so that just means elevator bot all the way. There is the limit on how far you can extend outward, which is going to be interesting to see how teams navigate that, but the no height limit, we are going to see some ye old tippy over bots, okay? Shout out 2019. The tube gods get satiated by the fact that the human player can cycle tubes in auto, which means that by week 1, we're gonna see 5-piece level 1 autos easy. We already have a level 1 4-piece got cooked up by 9408 the Warbots. The true challenge is going to be a 5-piece auto on level 4, which we'll probably see by week 4 or 5, whenever the cheesy poofs compete. On to some of these robots in 3 days. I noticed 2 distinct designs, and it's really 1 mechanism versus 2 mechanisms. Do you have 1 claw or elevator that handles both the tube and the algae, or do you have 2 separate mechanisms, 1 distinctly for the tubes, 1 distinctly for the algae? And of the 2 mechanism bots, they seem to prefer just cycling low. Again, have the human players take care of getting the algae into the barge. Rust Hounds showed up with a 2 mechanism bot, got the tube chute into the tube elevator on one side, and what really looks like a 2014 bot on the other, especially since you don't want to bother, taking the algae neatly off of that reef. You want to be able to pick up from the ground, drop off into the amp. Never gonna call it a processor. For the climber, it's got what I'm calling a taffy puller. If you ever seen a taffy puller, that is basically what they do to taffy, not to metal cages. Well, I mean, maybe, I don't know, stay safe around taffy pullers. The University of Minnesota came out with a bot named Poseidon, and I'd argue that this one's got 3 mechanisms. You got their tube elevator, you got the algae arm, which again just looks like a 2014 bot. But then you got this interesting little, not quite an arm, almost like a finger, gets tubes from the ground and able to use the algae mechanism to just flip it right onto level 1, which is really clever. Now, Penn State has a bot to look out for. 1 mechanism to take care of the algae and the tube, but look at this. Quick swap. Cycle times people, cycle times that quick swap is gonna feed families. It's also a really speedy bot, okay, especially for a robot built in 3 days. Got the swerve drive. Elevator can drop the coral off at all 4 levels. And it's got a donut climb with what I'm calling an unclaw. Instead of a claw that grabs onto the bar to pull itself up, it's got the mechanism right in the middle. And then it's got the unclaw that presses it up off of the ground. And you don't have to worry about any, rocking back and forth, some odd angles. That is nice, centered center of gravity. Unqualified Quokkas had the meta last year for Crescendo, so they're a must to revisit this year, and honestly, might be onto something. For Reefscape, they cooked up not 1, but 2 robots in 3 days. Whooper is their low cycle bot, and we stand a short king in this household. Whooper, for the fact that it's short, has their own version of that quick swap. With its short stature, the amp's right there. Again, keep calling it an amp. Processor logo, it's an amp. It's got a grapple hook climb that grabs on from the inside of the cage, pulls itself up. Okay, it must have some stickum on that. I don't know how it's not sliding down. Reminiscent of 330's 2016 bot in the fact that it can right itself if it ever gets an F in the chat. Quaxley is their tall bot, and it's got a Ferris wheel arm on an elevator. It takes care of tubes on one side and a claw for the ball on the other. It still manages to cycle into the amp just fine, and it looks like they could get it onto the barge, but again, might not have to worry about bots scoring algae into the barge. Quaxley also has a taffy puller to make light work of that deep cage. 118, of course, came out with their Every bot, which is just a kit bot, but better. The kit bot focuses solely on level 1 tubes, while the every bot can handle level 1 tubes, balls into the amp, and a deep cage with its grappling hook. For some single mechanism elevators on a proper 2019 bot, we're looking at Bison Robotics and their robot, Greg. Truly a name for a robot. It's got a claw to take care of the algae and additional rollers to work in that tube. It's got its own version of a quick swap ish, but the most important function, it can yeet that tube. Cycle times, people. You gotta score quick. Sometimes you just gotta yeet that tube into level 1. Big Sky Robotics has a tube-only bot, but if you only do one thing, better do it well. And look at this! Peep that ground feeder to elevator coral handoff. Exchange so clean, it's got me calling the tube by its legal name. A big consensus I've seen is to at least have the ability to put algae into the amp because ranking points, but bots like Big Skies will have teams soloing the reef week 1. Ground pickup also means that you can steal tubes from the opposing alliance as defense. We saw that play out very well last year. If they don't have pieces, they can't score. So maybe get yourself a ground feeder, pop on over to the opposing alliance side, mess with the tube station, because the tube station is on limits in terms of defense, so steal some of the tubes, yeet them to your alliance partners, help with those cycle times. That coral exchange, I tell you, that will go places. We're finishing with Pride of the North and their robot Extendosaurus. Is this a me reference? The resemblance is uncanny. If you want a shirt like this, link in the description. Extendosaurus got them jaws to handle game pieces, and they don't gotta turn around to do it. Cycle times, people. Doesn't have to worry about turning around and adjusting. It goes right on through those rollers. Gotta watch out for the extension limit. Does look like it goes out just a wee bit too far by my untrained eye. But if you stay within the perimeter, that height, those mandibles, it's gonna go places. Handles tube at all levels, can take care of the amp, might even score into the barge in a pinch. Still no endgame on it. Get yourself a taffy puller, grappling hook maybe. I mean, with this one, I'd like to see a donut climb. So this was just a quick check-in on early designs. I wager that the meta is going to be a pen bot and an every bot this year if you want to stay low, but still handle algae into the amps. But I guess at the end of the day, the best design is the one that works the best for you. And great work and great designs, as always, from these RI3D teams. Let me know some of your strats down in the comments. Are you gonna make the robots kiss? Please make them kiss. More exciting robot stuff to come, so make sure you like and subscribe so you don't miss out on the recaps. Have fun and stay safe during the rest of the build season, and remember, gracious in victory, professional in defeat. Amen.
Water game confirmed.